The Mannin Line, daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. You and me through till 1 today. Whatever you want to talk about. Well, 2 peaks in the Isle of Man's tourist numbers every year during the TT and Manx Grand Prix. So how was your Manx Grand Prix this year? Did you have guests to say? What did they think of it? What did they make of it? Well, they make of the weather. Grandstand seemed to be fairly busy. What about elsewhere? Did you enjoy the days in Peel? How was the Mordidoo Day? And also, what do you think about this thing now? The Manx Whale and Dolphin Watchers say that the sale of helium balloons should be banned on the Isle of Man. The charity expressed concerns over them ending up in the sea, posing a danger to wildlife. Of course, I think it was a couple of years ago that Office of Fair Trading made it illegal to release lanterns and helium balloons, but didn't stop the sale of helium balloons. And of course, a big deal, the sale of helium balloons. I mean, it makes money for lots and lots of people, and it's very big for birthdays. Who hasn't been to a birthday where there's at least one massive helium balloon being used? So the sale of helium balloons, ban them. What do you think? Text, email, call, WhatsApp, and anything else you want to talk about. Richard's with us now. Hi, Richard.
How you doing, Andy? You all right?
Good, thanks. What's on your mind?
Well, I feel a bit ashamed to be Manx, really, to tell you the honest truth.
In what way? Why?
The way people are being treated coming to this island, for starters, left on the quay at the very early stages of practice. Friends of mine couldn't get on the boat. We knew it was bad weather, but when they went to get the boat the next day, the steam packet basically turned around to them and says, well, you won't be coming. You know what I mean?
Why was that? Was the boat full, or what happened?
Well, that's it. Well, it could only take a certain amount of people, couldn't it? Because health and safety and all that. You know, there was big problems with that one. You know, breaking down and what, this, that, and so. The fact is that this particular person spent 2 days in this camper. He had booked this ticket in November 22. He had to sleep in the car parks around Heysham there to Morecambe Way to wait to see if apparently his name got put into a ballot and his name was picked out of the hat 2 days later so he could get back to the island. Now, there were foreign tourists there, and he was sort of like having a word with them saying, you know, what are you going to do? Like, and some actually went up to the Lake District and says, we won't be bothering with the Isle of Man anymore. And some actually went back to Europe, so we're going back. We're just absolutely fed up with it. You know, they were sick to the back teeth of how they were being treated. Couldn't get in touch with the steam packet. Now, that's just the start of it. Marshals were left there as well. They couldn't get to the island. You know, I mean, this was the start of the debacle. But the thing is, this trying to cram 2 weeks of what it was for 90-odd years into 9 days has been catastrophic. Now, I'm not having all the marshals, all the medics, the riders, they all, you know, it's been a great event in some ways, but it's been let down by the organisation of it. They've shot themselves in the foot. There's people still could be here now for all of this week, spending their money on the island, and they've all gone back. You know, they've shot themselves in the foot. You know, there's been events cancelled. You know, there's been extra rider pressure, mechanics. You know, there's been extra pressure put on the newcomers, I feel. And I feel that's made it a little bit unsafe as well, you know. And I'm speaking as an ex-rider from years ago, but, I just think it's just I feel a bit embarrassed, really. It's
So let's just get this straight. Let's go back to was it a friend of yours who had a motorhome over in England? Is that right?
Yeah.
And they were delayed because
he comes here regular.
Right.
He comes here regular.
Delays because of bad weather, was it?
Yeah. And they couldn't get on the boat the next day because they could only get so many people on the boat because it might be in the new boat, because they're only allowed to take so many passengers, apparently, from what I've been told. So, anyway, but I just think, there's been all the spectators. I made a point of wherever I was spectating, speaking to spectators there yesterday, and it was very negative. Very, very negative. I spoke to about 20 of them up this hedge at Craignabar, and, they just where they were from and stuff like that. And I said, I'm sorry. It's been like this for years,
And what was what was typical of the comments they were passing, Richard?
Basically, just nothing to do. Events cancelled, waiting around for, which you normally do. You're waiting around sometimes for the races to start, but it's been made worse by trying to cram it all into 9 days. You know what I mean? You've got far more races now than you used to do at the Manx Grand Prix. You used to have 3 races, and then they brought the classic races in. So you got more races, so there's more track time needed, and then they cut it to 9 days. I mean, I've actually had a word with, I seen Tim Krukol the other day, and I had a word with him, and I bent his ear over it, and I just said, it's horrible. I had a horrible feeling, just that it's not right, this,
Richard,
it's a shame when everybody puts so much effort into it,
Yeah, I think their point has been, what the point they've made in the past, and I'm not endorsing it, I'm just saying what they said. They said that people can't afford 2 weeks off anymore, and people don't come, the people stay for shorter amounts of time. They come for 3 and 4 days at a time.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, if you showed me the evidence of that on paper, then I might believe it. But anything that comes out of there now, I wouldn't believe anyway, really. The trouble is, because the TT organisation, they sort of they seem to ride roughshod over the Manx Grand Prix. Now, we had this a few years ago where I and a number of others, we all protested outside government offices when the TT organisation tried to get rid of the Manx Grand Prix. And we all protested, and we sort of got onto all the MHKs going and all that, and we got it turned around. We got it turned around because they tried to get rid of it.
At the back of all, do you remember a while back they tried to incorporate everything into it was the Festival of Motorcycling, wasn't it? And the classic TT. At the back of all this, Richard, there is a kind of feeling that the powers that be don't want the MGP anymore. Yeah.
Well, do you know what? It felt like a demolition job on the Manx Grand Prix. And I said that to Tim as well. And I felt so strong about it. I don't normally come on here. It's really important. But I'll tell you now, what they've done here is just, it's shameful, really. It's such a shame when all the marshals and all the medics, and it's just a fantastic event, and it's been let down by the organisation of it. And I just, lost for words, really.
Okay. Well, I know. Well, you've given us some very powerful words, Richard, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I'm all. You got the safety of it as well. The more you cram in, the more pressure you put on the rides, the more pressure you put on the mechanics, the less time they've got if something goes wrong. Then you feel pressure to go out and go faster to qualify.
Okay.
And that's a fact because I've done it.
Right.
But if you've got more time like it used to be, it wouldn't have been a problem. There's been a severe lack of activities on over here as well. There's been a lot of people snubbed, multiple winners, snubbed from certain events, never even asked to come. It could have been such a more fantastic event. It's been pretty good, but it could have been brilliant. And I said to Tim Krugel, I said, you're sending people back off this island going, forget that. And that's not good. When this island really needs money at the minute as well. So apparently my MHK next door tells me, he says, it's not in a great financial way. So, you're pushing people away. Why do that? I just do not understand it.
Richard,
on this beautiful, unique island, they should be going back saying, what a brilliant event. And I don't think they will be.
All right. Thanks, Richard. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Good to hear from you.
Cheers.
17 minutes past 12. Thank you. A note in from Fred, who just said, you're talking about helium balloons. He sent me a photo of a helium balloon pinned against the fence at Ronaldsway. Oh, crikey. Can you please mention, says Kerry and Leslie, there's a meeting to discuss the proposal of the wind farm in the south of the Isle of Man. It's held tonight, 7 o'clock, Ballabeg Hall. Kerry and Leslie. Thank you, Kerry and Leslie. 164. Don't worry, we're going to be there with a Manx Radio microphone, seeing what happens today. And will you be at the meeting, Julian?
Oh, yes, definitely. It should be interesting, I would imagine. And it's not just for the South. You know, if you're hearing Mike Prophet talking about sticking 100 turbines on the island, that's not fittable in just the South, is it? So this is something that's going to influence an awful lot of people if this manages to, well, I don't know, slide its way in. Just a quick one with Richard, actually. I totally sympathise with what he's saying, and I think if it was a school report, I'd say must do better for next year. So the next MGP, they can learn lessons, I think, and improve on it.
So what do you think went wrong, in your opinion?
It was a bit bitty. I mean, I thought it looked quite good up at the Derby Day. Ramsey seemed a bit quieter. I wasn't a party to what Richard's seen, but if that's the case, then they certainly need to work on some things because they don't want people not coming back here. I think there were also problems with MGP wear, wasn't there? You know, clothing and things, I believe, which is not a good thing either. It's always good to have that kind of souvenir things to bring back with you.
Yeah, I think hasn't the company gone partly bust, the one that's doing the stuff?
Yeah, especially this year with it being a celebration for the MGP, so it would have been a perfect year to have had some collectible souvenir wear, wouldn't it?
Okay, but that wasn't why you called, was it?
No, excuse me. Just thinking, in case anyone is visiting Cornwall, it might be worth a trip to the Jubilee Pool in Penzance. It was opened in 1935. It's a Grade 2 Lido pool. The design is Art Deco, Art Nouveau and Cubist inspired, and is intended to resemble a seagull in flight. There's plenty of room at the UK's largest seawater pool, as it holds 5 million litres or 2 Olympic swimming pools worth of seawater and can accommodate up to 600 people at busy times. Interestingly, in 2020, a 410-metre deep geothermal well was drilled by Geothermal Engineering of Redruth in Cornwall, the same company that installed the new geothermal power station at United Downs, also in Cornwall. And since installing the geothermal heating at the Jubilee Pool, curious tourists, some of them ex-Icelandic Blue Lagoon people, have been flocking there around the world, so much so that they're advising booking well in advance, possibly a month in advance to get in. And it also reminds me of the old pool at Port Erin, which was sort of like a little mini Lido, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Oh, I mean, if you see old photos of that, there used to be, I mean, literally hundreds of people on the cliffs. I think you used to look at, they had diving competitions and everything at Port Erin, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you go on the imuseum.im site and you put in Port Erin swimming pool, there's a load of old pictures there. Absolutely. They must have had a whale of a time there.
Of course, there was also the open-air pool at the end of Peel Promenade as well.
Yeah, I know. It was all the rage in those days, wasn't it? And I think people seemed to be quite fit in those days, didn't they? Everyone seemed to be rushing around when you look at old videos. Other little thing, I noticed, we were talking about wildfires last week, and I noticed a BBC News article titled "Greece Wildfires, 79 People Arrested for Arson," with Civil Protection Minister Vasilis Kikilias saying on a televised emergency briefing last week, "Arsonist scum are setting fires that threaten forests, property and most of all, human lives." 79. sounds like an organisation more than just an arsonist.
Well, you would have thought some things, and who knows what goes in the head of arsonists. So, we'll leave that to them. I was very taken, by the way, and thank you for sending me the photo of the Bradder Head path, which looks overgrown.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it worse, but it's definitely, some of the places it's less than a shoe width across between the gorse. So that's hardly going to be a fire break as recommended by that University of Edinburgh thing that was done after the, October 17th Bradder fire. And you know what? That sort of thing, I don't see gorse being burned on the hills anymore either. I'm just wondering if fire breaks are even carried out anymore.
Actually, it's been a long time since I've, because there used to be controlled burns, controlled fires all over the place at one time.
Yeah, I mean, that fire, that was human started on the top road, which went up some gorse on that wall of the house facing out over Rowney Golf Course.
Okay.
And that burned its way. The only reason it didn't keep going, really, was the fantastic fire brigade were up there with their long hoses, and the fact that the road at Fleshick kind of put it to a stop. But, it burned a lot of acres. But if that happened anywhere else on the island, you imagine there's some massive swathes of heathland on the island that would just go and go and go, wouldn't it?
Mm. What was the name of that swimming pool again in Cornwall?
Jubilee Pool.
And whereabouts is it?
Penzance.
In Jubilee Pool in Penzance. Okay, all right.
They've got their own. They've got their own little website. I think it's jubileepool.com or something like that. Anyway, it's easy to find. But I reckon you see people sitting there in the middle of winter with the steam coming off the water. So it's sort of reminiscent of the Blue Lagoon in Iceland.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, good to hear from you. Well, with the whole penchant at the moment for sea swimming, early morning sea swimming, what do you think about the reintroduction then of Lidos, if you want, open-air swimming pools on the Isle of Man? The Port Erin one, I think it ended up as a hatchery, didn't it? But we have the one just down below us at Port Skillion in Douglas. Port Skillion was a sea swimming pool. And the one in Peel, I just wonder whether you think that would ever catch on, whether or not if we had open-air swimming pools, and particularly, as Julian said, perhaps heated naturally, whether it's geothermal or whether it's solar panels, or stick a wind turbine up near it. I just wonder whether you think that's something for the future. Open-air swimming pools, Lidos, seem to be popular wherever they are. Not that they ever make money. Very few swimming pools ever make money. But as a sort of facility, did you ever use the swimming pool at Peel in its heyday? Always looked very popular. The photos always made it look very popular. And the story that Julian was referring to, this company called Cube International and the Cube Partnership. So the company responsible for supplying the official TT merchandise has confirmed another part of its group has gone into liquidation. So Cube International says the wider group, away from Cube Partnership, is continuing to trade through historic challenges. Means they're in trouble, having successfully delivered a number of contracts. It adds it's already developing a new range of merchandise for 2024 and is looking forward to sharing these designs with Manx retailers shortly. Cube Partnership was responsible for the merchandise and retail for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, but despite forecasts of a positive outlook, the reality on the back of COVID was, how can we put it, less. The partnership was carrying too much debt, which was having a negative impact on the wider group. No staff positions were directly lost through the process, and partnership debt has been restructured and transferred to a new trading entity. Remember, Cube International got the TT contract earlier on this year. Hitherto, it had been handled extremely efficiently by the Manx company Motorsport Merchandise. Remember the ones with their own shop on Duke Street? Well, the shop's gone, and they had masses of stands at the back of the grandstand as well. Anyway, Cube International's got it. Motorsport Merchandise didn't. So what are your thoughts? Lots of comment about the MGP. Andy, they want to get the MGP back to 2 weeks as soon as possible, says Paddy. And also, does the Manx Grand Prix make any money? It's not as big as the TT, so Pammy said, why don't they cancel the Manx and add an extra day to TT? And a chill went across the room. Neil says, and Neil111, I think the numbers were way down for MGP. Grandstand had so few people up there, it was shocking. There wasn't really any atmosphere. Helium is an inert gas and non-renewable resource. It should be reserved for essential equipment like MRI scanners and other medical uses. I think we need, 264 says, we need to ban frivolous balloons, please. Well, they are fun, aren't they? Richard just said they're trying to get rid of the MGP. Maybe they just accept it as they want to get to net zero. Think about it, ominously, says 039. We can pump nearly £80 million into Liverpool, but why didn't we buy Ramsey Bakery? Says Mr. B. That's not Mr. B the baker, is it? On 927. Are you missing Ramsey Bakery? Did you miss that, Molenberg? Back to the lines. Eddie's on now. Hi, Eddie.
Yes, good day, Andy. Couple of points. First of all, swimming pools. Okay. Now, Portsmouth Mary had one at outside the Perwick Hotel.
Oh, yes, of course. Days. Yes.
Now, I remember that quite well. And, in fact, during the 70s, my children used to go down there and swim in it in the summertime. Now, that was just an aside, really. My main point to talk about was balloons, because that particular bay, Perwick Bay, I cross it regularly, and I pick up all the plastic and stuff like that, and I can guarantee, right, I'll guarantee when I go across that beach, and it's not a huge one, I will pick up 4 balloons that have been washed up in the sea. Now, there are 2 types of balloons. There are what people always think of as a rubber balloon. It's not actually rubber, but and there are what's called a mylar balloons. These are the ones with all the fancy writing on, and the ones that are shaped like animals sometimes. And now the other ones, the old rubber ones, do actually decompose very slowly, but they do decompose. The mylar ones do not. They do not break down. And most of them are pretty big. And it's not so much the balloon that's the problem. It's the string that's attached to them. And they're the things that affect the wildlife on that. Now, most of these balloons which arrive in the sea are, of course, filled with helium, as you quite rightly said, and one of your previous people also said. But helium, of course, is a finite resource. There is only so much of it on the Earth. You cannot make it. You can't make helium. And I believe the biggest source of helium at the moment is in the United States underground. And one of your former comments was about the fact that we do need it for certain things, and one of them, very much so, is the MRI machines. So as soon as you put that helium into the atmosphere, it simply goes out into space. So there.
What is the answer then? Is it do we need to ban helium balloons, and particularly mylar balloons?
Very much so. That would be my first thing to say. Yep, definitely. There's no point in them. Obviously, as I say, I regularly go across that beach and I'll pick up 4 on that particular beach. And I know people who go around other beaches and they're always finding balloons there. About, I think it was before COVID, there was a survey done in the United States, and they were determining the main source of pollution along beaches. And, of course, at the time, plastic bags were one, and plastic bottles were the other one, and the third one was balloons, believe it or not. And that's worldwide.
So now is the time. I mean, the whale watch on the Isle of Man, the dolphin and whale watch are talking about the fact that obviously these mylar balloons, as you say, the metallic-looking ones, can get ingested and they just strangle the creatures from inside.
Yeah, and also it's the plastic tape which they which you hold them with, you know, the sort of PVC or polyester type tape that they have. They're pretty coloured. You find them on the beach all the time. And I did a survey before COVID when I was doing all this originally, and in a space of just over a month, I collected 80 balloons off the beach. That's how serious it is. So in my opinion, yes, we don't need them. We need the helium. So stop wasting it.
Okay, thanks for calling today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, 28 minutes to 1.
Sitting on a beautiful sunlit terrace with views over the sea, savouring exquisite Mediterranean food. It's the holiday experience we all dream of, and you don't even need to leave the island to enjoy it. Leonardo's in Castletown brings you authentic flavours from tapas to pasta in a welcoming Mediterranean atmosphere. Open Tuesday to Sunday, noon till 3 and 6 till 8. Taste the Mediterranean at Leonardo's in Castle Street. Search them on Facebook.
70 million workdays lost. A cost of up to £99 billion to the UK economy. Can your business afford to ignore mental health? St John Ambulance have partnered with Mental Health First Aid England in a bid to transform workplace mental health and support staff. We are offering adult mental health first aid training courses to encourage early intervention, helping you recognise the signs and symptoms and guide a person to the right support. Call St John Ambulance on 674 387 today.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors. With a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
When it comes to building and DIY supplies, shop where the professionals shop. Haldane Fisher for concrete blocks to roof trusses, timber to tiles, doors to panel pins, boilers to bathrooms, drainage to guttering, and everything in between. Get the job done with the right products from Haldane Fisher. Visit our stores in Douglas and Ramsey, or find us online on Facebook. Proud to be on island.
Feel right at home with Haldane Fisher.
I'm Mike Buttle. Join me on Thursday night on Manx Radio at 6 for a second series of journeys on our fantastic heritage railways. This time, I'm looking at the Manx Electric Railway. I'll be talking to some of the workers who keep the trams running, taking a trip to Groudle on the world's oldest operating tramcar, and getting an enthusiast perspective on the MER. Oh, and I'll be attempting to find out which came first, the Manx Electric sign in Douglas or the Hollywood sign in California. That's Thursday night at 6 on Manx Radio, or available online at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
25 to 1 on Manx Radio. Yes, helium is a non-renewable resource. The Earth is running out of helium. Helium is the only element on the periodic table which is a non-renewable resource on Earth. Didn't know that. Learned something today. Here's Juan now. Hi, Juan.
Lovely day on the rock, Andy, isn't it?
It's a gorgeous day. How was your MGP?
The MGP, well, I must say, first of all, there was a fantastic concert the other night put on by the Manx Cancer Support Group. The Rumours of Fleetwood Mac, excellent concert, sold out, made some good money for the local charity. Just touching on the balloon thing, I've got no dog in the race in that anymore. So they don't use helium now. It's a balloon gas, which is a form of helium, but it's not helium as per. If Paul Fisher was still alive from Balloons to Go, he'd give you so much technical detail on it from the other side of the coin. The thing we have to remember as well is, and the government going to maybe they can spend £1 million on putting the nets and drape it along between the new wind turbines to stop these balloons coming over, because it's making it sound like it's all the Isle of Man's fault, these balloons. We've got to remember that we've got prevailing winds and we're on an island, and as someone said, we've got helium in these balloons, so these things are travelling from the UK, so banning them over here is not going to make that much difference because the things are still travelling through the air anyway. So So, all the do-gooders that want to ban the balloons, it's not going to make that much difference. You're still going to be picking them up off the floor.
But I mean, what if we banned these mylar, these metallic-looking ones, and just had it's latex now, isn't it? They're not rubber balloons; they're latex balloons, I think.
It's latex, and the others are foil. They're foil mylar. Now, the latex ones, I mean, we had this discussion at the agricultural shows quite a few years ago, and it was the latex balloons that was actually causing the problems because they actually pop. And then because they're actually giveaways, they're freebies, I think everyone used to give them out, they lie in the grass, and then the cow takes them and eats them, or the sheep eat them, and it goes into their intestines. So the foil and mylar balloons, not so much do you find them around too much because they're that damned expensive to buy. No one wants to let them go. But the emphasis being put on, the mylar, I think the latex is just as bad, in all honesty, because they're cheap balloons and they just lie in the ground.
What's your opinion? Do you think helium balloons, and it's not this balloon gas you're saying is helium and other stuff, is it?
It's actual balloon gas. I'll find out the actual detail for you, Andy, but it's actually a balloon gas now because helium now has gone a crazy price. I mean, when I was doing helium balloons at that time, and the balloon gas, I think it was about £200 for a cylinder, and I believe now it's £700 a cylinder. So it's going to price itself out anyway, naturally, eventually. So the product's going to price itself out.
And does this balloon gas still make you sound like Joe Pasquale if you breathe it in?
It does, Andy. I think we should put you on it for one day on the Mannin Line and see how many threads you get from that.
Thank you, Julian.
Yes. Now, just going on to the Grand Prix, I listened to your caller before, and I must say I didn't watch a lot of the Grand Prix, but I went up on the mountain and watched it, and it seemed very, very quiet. Not a great lot of people around, but I went up the paddock last night and was talking to a few of the traders up at the paddock. And everyone seems to have the same opinion that when it first started off, the festival of motorbikes and the Classic and the Grand Prix and everything, and they restructured it. They had the bands on there. It was lively. There was life at the grandstand, and it seemed very, very dead this year. The traders were complaining about the trade. I believe that people were looking for merch for the MGP centenary merch, and there was nothing to buy. The marquee was lying empty. There was no merch up there, from what I believe. There wasn't any last night. And I've been told that there wasn't any all this week. So for a 100-year celebration of the MGP, a little bit of a damp squid. Definitely agree with your caller on that. And I don't know what Paul Phillips and his team are trying to do, whether they're trying to make it like the meetings away and have it as a short meeting and try and make as much money out of it as possible, because it seems to be a lot more commercial aspect now than the old fun TT and MGP that used to be. It seems to be a very commercial aspect to it, and you're losing that, that uniqueness or that mankness that we've had in it before, that friendliness. But there definitely seemed to be a lack of liveliness and excitement up there last night. Definitely got the car parking better. I think the fan zone's good, but there was just something missing. There was definitely something missing with the atmosphere of it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Stuart.
Take care, Andy.
All right, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Teresa in Port St Mary says, I agree with Richard regarding MGP. I marshalled the event. Days were too long and so tiring, and tired marshals are a risk to safety if they aren't as alert as when they're needed. There was a definite underlying vibe from fellow marshals that somebody somewhere in authority is trying to finish off the MGP. Oh, Teresa. Thank you for that, Teresa in Port St Mary. And more messages in. I'm not surprised the TT merchandisers went bust. They charged a fortune. They haven't gone bust, just part of their company. I went to an outdoor open-air pool in Zurich with some friends a few months back. It was amazing. Understandably, the Isle of Man is different to European cities, but I think the idea of an outdoor pool on the Isle of Man is amazing, especially if there's a large grass area to lay in the sun or have have game activities. Families would have a blast. Tourists as well as people on the Isle of Man, teens, adults. We could even have an events, something around it. It's a fantastic idea, says Matt. Obviously, during the winter, it wouldn't be so popular, but there are solutions to this as well. I have to agree with the previous caller about balloons. My wife and I saw someone lose a balloon on Saturday. Wasn't deliberate, but it just sailed up into the air and will no doubt land in the sea. David's on now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just I want to talk about the existence or non-existence of the Development Corporation and what are they doing for us for the future. And when Parliament get back in, maybe some politician can write a few questions down saying, what have we achieved with the Development Corporation? Because we've still got all these old buildings lying about. And the other day, somebody said to me, have you been down to the back of Strand Street there? M&Co, building owned by the government on behalf of the taxpayers, the school that's there. And remember the supermarket used to be there, ShopRite.
Yes, that's empty, isn't it now?
Well, I think it could be still a jab centre, but I'm just wondering, what are we planning? What's their aim to put all these bits together? All they seem to be doing is making nonsense up at Domain Road there regarding a zone where everybody's going to have a bicycle and no cars, and you're going to walk to the shops and walk to your job and come back. And we've got the likes of two pubs there, the Quarter Bridge and the one down by Park Road School there. We've got Park Road School itself. And we've also got Summerland. If you look at Summerland all the time now, what are we doing? The old bus station. And especially the prison site. There were plans, in my time as a politician anyway, there were plans for that to be done and moved on. And we have the Glenside one, which is nearly to completion. I hope somebody comes on in the future and say it's going to be ready in 2 months' time and people are going to move from Retna Bay and solve a few problems there.
It just seems to be that there's a trend that emerges here with sites that go derelict, that just stay there for... Well, actually, you can tell me, because you'll probably know this, what's the story with the House Drake Holiday Camp? Who owns that now? Is it private or what?
No, it's privately owned. It's an individual. I won't name him. The guy tried a few things, tried to have... flats there, and then he tried in individual houses. Obviously, and I don't decry people who own land to try and maximise their investment to make a return on it, because you know that what's annoying to me at the minute is every time government doesn't do something or make a decision, it's costing the developer money. Because you look at them, the ones that government's involved in at the minute, extra 10 million. Where's that from?
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not going to pry into this, but what's the situation at House Drake? Did they get planning knocked back, or how far did it get?
They did win one, and that was to do with I think it was 15 individual houses on the site there. The problem is, and I'm not speaking out of turn, I don't know the gentleman personally. I think he still lives on the island anyway. But I presume he's spent a lot of money getting the land and to knock it down flat. And he's going to want a return on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the problem we have when you want to put stuff in the community. But like I said to you before, the three buildings down there, it's the old school at M&Co, and where ShopRite used to be, was now the Jab Centre. What's happened there? There should be a little caucus there for this Development Corporation, or who they are, is to say to us, what are we doing?
Of course, M&Co is underneath the old St Thomas's School, isn't it?
That's right. And you know, even if they run the school for the community, we've still got a place. Well, there's a few old churches getting sold as well. There's one near Ballacameen School there. You know, we're looking for a place to put people who are not homeless or sofa surface. You know, why aren't we looking at the future and getting some investment done to say to these people, look, there's a home, there's an apartment here or a flat. you've got that for 6 to 12 months to get yourself back on your feet, and then we'll hopefully get you a job.
Okay. All right.
Well, that's what I look at all the time.
Well, okay, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. That's something I'll certainly bring up with the Treasury Minister, because Treasury, I think, is the main shareholder of the Manx Development Corporation. Alex Allenson, MHK, is on Mannin Line. Let me see. I think it's 2 weeks today. I think it is, yes. Well, this Friday, Kerry Sharp, MLC, is on, and Laurie Hooper, the DHSC Minister, is on, talking about adoption and fostering children in care and how we're looking after children on the Isle of Man, what the future is. Tim Crookall's on a week on Friday. Tim Crookall, political member for Department for Enterprise, and also Deborah Heather, the new Chief Exec of Visit Isle of Man. And then on Tuesday the 12th, is that a fortnight today? I think it is. Alex Allenson, MHK, the Treasury Minister's on. So I'll put to Mr. Allenson, what's happening with the Manx Development Corporation and how far they've got down the line. And Mark's with us now. Hi, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Andy. I just wanted to raise something which I discovered when I was trying to arrange a pension for my son. He works for a startup company, and they don't have, obviously, startup don't have a lot of money, and they don't have a company pension scheme. So he's just come back from university. I thought, the condition that the government are in at the moment, you can't sort of guarantee that he'll have a pension in 30, 40 years' time whenever he retires or is able to retire. But what I found out, and this is me being completely naive, I talked to an independent financial advisor, and basically for an individual to try and take a private pension out, they would charge £700. So I thought that seems like an awful lot of money just to take. I'm not belittling the sector, but to go through and say if you're high risk, low risk, or medium risk in terms of your appetite for risk when it comes to investment. So I went to another independent financial advisor, and they charged £500. And I thought, okay, well, both of them were offering Aviva, which seems to be one of the only pension providers that, if you're an Isle of Man resident, you can access. So I went onto the Aviva website, and if in the UK and you're an individual, going through the website, you seem to be able to apply directly to Aviva if you're an individual. But if you're a Manx resident wanting to take a private pension up as an individual, not a company pension, you have to go through an IFA. You can't go directly to Aviva, and you get charged £500 to £700 from the two IFAs that I called up. And it just smells a bit to me, really. Either the legislation is not supporting individuals taking up private pensions, and at the moment, if you're an IFA, great, you can take £500, £700 of an individual, but it's also put my son off taking a private pension, and he was looking to contribute maybe £150 a month because that's all he could afford, but he thought the cost is so astronomical, he's not going to do it.
And what do you get for your £500?
What you get is the choice of what type of fund you should invest in. So whether it's a high risk, medium risk, or low risk. And I'm sure, and I haven't gone down the route, I'm sure if you went onto the Aviva website, which provides, I think is one of the only major pension providers for the Isle of Man, I'm sure there'll be a questionnaire that you could tick those boxes, and then you could actually be able to invest in the relevant pension. I think the legislation is there to protect the individual, because obviously pensions and investments are risky. But the access for, if you're a 17 or 18-year-old wanting to start a pension because you're worried that the Isle of Man the Isle of Man government won't have a pension for you in 30, 40 years' time, I think that's logical. Or if you're a sole trader and you want to get a private pension, according to these IFAs, it's going to cost you £500 to £700 for the advice. And that sounds, I wouldn't say like a racket, but it smells a bit like that, and I think it should be looked into, really.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mark, and we'll try and get to the bottom of that. If anybody is in the private pension business and they can clarify that for us, then please do.
Yeah, that would be great, because I was confused sort of going around the different IFAs trying to think about, well, this just seems off. And you go to Aviva's website and you can register directly without going to an IFA. So
and the worst thing about this, Mark, is that it's put your son off.
It's put him off, setting up a private pension, because £500, £700 lump sum And that money could have, rather than gone to the IFA, it could have gone to his pension pot. So it just seems a bit off, Andy. I just want to raise it because it just seemed a bit... I was annoyed by it, and it may be one of the MHKs or Alex Allenson who's on, he could sort of give his opinion on it. Because, thanks a lot, Andy.
I appreciate that, Mark. Thanks for calling.
Get your tickets now for this season's range of onboard dining events featuring old favourites like the legendary Pie and Mash Train, the Curry Club and more, including memorable dining experiences on one of our Steam theme events with something for everyone. To find out what's cooking on the dining car or to book, call 697 457 or visit rail.im.
TGI Fridays, Harry Ramsden's, Greg's, Chiquito. They're each loved for food and enjoyment. And now they've all teamed up with Iceland to bring their famous food direct to you. Piccolino, My Protein and many more, all in one place. Shop right, so anytime you're craving for what makes them famous, we can help. No defrost, no prep, no waste. Straight from the freezer into the oven. And all at great prices. New exclusive brands. Only at ShopRite. Proudly locally owned.
Construction waste today.
Tells recycle for another day.
A builder skip or two.
Tells Skips will bring to you.
Need quality Type 1 stone for your building or contracting job? Then contact Tells with no minimum order for collection or delivery. Call 677 137. Visit Tells Limited in Snugborough or find Tells Limited on Facebook.
Skips are what they do.
We're the guys that hire one to you.
Call Tells Skips today.
677 137.
Tonight here on Manx Radio at 6 o'clock, join Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark, for another countryside programme.
We take a look back at a very busy Young Farmers Weekend with their annual field day at Orrisdale.
And I took a trip down memory lane with Alison Jones and her husband, who run the Museum and Exhibition Centre at Nokalo in the old school. That's all in countryside here on Manx Radio tonight at 6 o'clock, brought to you by NFU Mutual. And you can subscribe or download the podcasts for free at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good to have you along. Thanks for joining Manx Radio this Tuesday afternoon. Feels like a Monday because yesterday was Bank Holiday Monday. I agree with Richard, said Enid. Why couldn't the organisers put some entertainment? Isn't that what they get paid for? This year I felt sorry for the holidaymakers just walking around, as some told me that not everybody just wants to sit in a pub. I think this MGP was terrible this year. Put it back to 2 weeks. Enid on 569. Thank you, Enid. Such a shame. I love the MGP. You wouldn't have thought it was 100 years old. No special events. Don't get me wrong, Spitfire was brilliant, but the rest of the event let it down. Too much pressure on the riders with 2 practice sessions in one day and long days for marshals. Talking to people at the back of the grandstand, says Texter 895. Total disbelief at the lack of retail outlets, and a few said they wouldn't return. So surely it was the 100th. It's the 100th anniversary, and a shame. Steve, that is, on 895. Thank you, Steve. Nobody's saying that climate change started the fires. Scientists, however, are in no doubt that climate change is making the fires worse, says Texter 653. The government's trying to stop any form of motorsport because of its green agenda, but motorsport brings in lots of revenue, much needed revenue, says Alan. Do you think the government is going to stop motorsport because of the net zero? Do you think that would happen? Regarding the MGP merchandise, says Ian, seems like we have another mess up by unnamed senior civil servants that affects significant numbers of people other than themselves. It's not only sad, it is shocking that this can happen. Why do we seem to be seeing this more and more, says Ian. Did anybody get any 100th anniversary merchandise? No seawater outdoor pools, please. The Irish Sea is one of the most polluted seas in the world. Thank you, says Anne in Douglas City. Andress Racing did a great event at Derby Airfield on Sunday. Well organised for the MGP, says Richard. Would you in Andress? And a message just to say, if it is helium in the balloons, it can only be helium or hydrogen that can be used. There is no other gas. There is no other balloon gas. Hydrogen is not used because it's flammable, so only helium can be used, says Mark. I have to tell you, Mark, I've had a look. There is some something called balloon gas that is majority helium with other bits in it. And if you're interested, ITV4 tonight and tomorrow, 8 until 9. A look back at the MGP. It's all very well talking about changing schedules for MGP and TT, but nobody seems to consider the residents on the Isle of Man. I doubt feedback from residents was sought after this year's TT. That's Texter 404. The free bands over 4 nights of last year's bank holiday weekend at the grandstand during MGP were excellent. We went every night. This year, nothing. Didn't go near the grandstand this year, says Dee. That's it. Back with another open line tomorrow. Thanks to Howie on the phone.
WINT.